Is it true that if you're not a coffee professional, your ability to taste coffee and your palate sucks? Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of Coffee Q&A here on the Onocoffee channel. I'm your host, and if you're just joining us for the very first time, we do this live stream most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern time, talking about coffee. So like I said, well, actually I didn't say that, but today's topic stems from yesterday's topic because, yesterday we were talking about this question that Gary asked on one of the forums that I visit. And he, of course, said that, does your coffee taste different for drinking out of stainless or ceramic? So we went through that. And, I gave him a response. And what did I say to him? I said to him, the more important, to my answer to him was that the more important question, do you find your coffee tastes differently between stainless and ceramic, right? Because I can tell you there's a difference, but if you don't taste a difference, then is there a difference, right? So Gary writes back and he says, I don't notice any difference. Let me show you though. He says, I don't notice any difference, but I don't have very good taste palate. Which you can see here, I responded, my friend, you have the greatest palate. You have the best palate out there, your own. Don't let any of these coffee pros or coffee tubers convince you otherwise. Whoops. You know that what you like and you know what you don't like when you taste it. And that's all that really matters. And all right, if you wanted to get to the bottom of the stream, and that's really the point. That's all that really matters. You could sign off now. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe. Have a great day. And see you next time. Power plant's with us. What's going on, Mom? How are you? Kent? And we have, forgive me, but is it Josh? How you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. So that's kind of the gist of what it's about. Is like, I hear this a lot. I hear it a lot from people that I meet everywhere around the world. And it's the people, and it's always some variation of, I don't have as good a palate as you. I can't really taste anything. And I'm just like, no, you can totally taste as good as I can, or better even. Like, especially if you're a woman, you can taste far better than I can. Actually, in my experience, women tend to be better tasters than men in a general sense, right? Like women tend to have better senses for nuance and insight, and just so much better. They're so much better. Like, all the women that I know in coffee are just so much better than I am typically. So it's like, oh, they're pretty awesome. The difference between someone like myself that tastes coffee or tastes anything, any kind of thing, and the person at home, gentle viewers, is that we tend to think about what we're tasting where most people don't, right? It's just a matter of thinking about what you're tasting. And this is what I tell, like, when we do like public cuppings or first-time tastings for people that come into Spro and they're like, hey, we want to taste some coffee. My approach is, as we're tasting these coffees, I tell them, give me your descriptions. Tell me what you think about it. And I tell them, this is a place where you don't have to be very concerned about whether or not it's going to be accepted, right? You watch all these shows or you see all this stuff out there, and people that especially with wine, the wine world, they're so like stuffy and they're so full of like beautiful descriptives and all this kind of stuff. And the same thing in coffee, right? You see all these descriptions like, what are you talking about, right? It doesn't have to be that. It can be whatever it is for you, because coffee or tasting is a very personal experience. It's all about your own experience tasting the coffee. It's really a solo pursuit. Yes, you may get a coffee that's batch brewed and you get two of them and you're kind of having the same coffee. Okay, that's true. But especially if you're getting like hand brewed coffee or let's say espresso, it's all just made for you. The person that you're with may have a similar coffee, but it may not be exactly the same. Right? So what you experience is really something very individual for just you. And I tell people when they come into our cuppings, it's like, just tell me what you think. Don't worry about all these descriptives that we have. We've got a flavor wheel. There's a whole flavor. Oh, there's a flavor wheel. I must have it somewhere nearby. Some of the times I don't think about all the accessories that we might have available to us to show you at any moment until I say it, and then I need to see if we actually, I think I brought one of them here. This is my problem. I have all this stuff stuck around. Oh yeah, here's one. This is something from a company called Coffee Mind. I think they're in Europe somewhere. And as you can see here, this is a coffee flavor wheel. It's not the coffee flavor wheel. Like the coffee flavor wheel is made by the Specialty Coffee Association, which they keep updating every few years because it's a money grab and they want to do it. They say there's some kind of change and all this happy duty stuff, but really, I think it's a money grab. But if you could see here, I wish I could put it a little bit higher. It's kind of heavy because I had it framed because I'm kind of special like that. Great for the wall, terrible for like this kind of thing. But as you can see here, the way that the Coffee Mind people have broke this down, you've got major categories: floral, berry, fruity, dried fruits, sweets, chocolate, nutty, roasted, industrial, spicy, green, cereal, green, herb, vegetal. Like they can be all descriptions. Now, these are all great ways to do it, right? You can use these kind of descriptions. Does it have like a clove spiciness? Does it have, mandarin fruit? Maybe it has some rubber flavors to it, right? These are all potential. But maybe you might not be familiar with all of this yet. And that's okay. You don't need to have all of this, right? Like I said, when it comes to working with new tasters or just enthusiasts who want to like experience coffee more, it's really about getting them to express themselves, right? So what I encourage people to do is say, like, what comes to mind when you're tasting this? Whatever, and I was like, whatever comes to your mind, express that, right? And people say colors. Like those ones I love, they come up with colors, right? Like it tastes purple. What does purple taste like? Who knows? But really, it's about exploring that expression, right? I've had people tell me about music. Like one guy was like, it's like Def Leppard. It's like, Def Leppard. What? That's awesome. It's like, that's awesome. That's what I want to hear from you because, I work with coffee professionals. I go to coffee professional events. We do professional coffee tastings with coffee professionals. And it's always like, oh, it's got high acidity and the balance. And they've got all this, like, we've got this fruity, whatever the heck they're talking about. I'm not paying attention anymore. I'm just like, I don't care what you say. I'm like, I don't care anymore. I'm here to evaluate the coffee and decide what I'm going to buy. I don't care about the rest of it, right? So let's see who's here with us now. Mom is here. Mom, I already said that. Mom Kent. She hosts, how are you doing? Russell's with us. Good morning to you, Russell. Proplan says, I've offended people from telling people that what I thought something tasted or smelled like. Offended people, really? Like when you smell skunk spray, there is a light amount of floral musk that you can get off of it. I have not smelled that. I mean, I've smelled skunk like in the woods after a skunk has attacked whatever it was attacking. I have not smelled it with enough fervor to detect anything other than skunk. But I believe you. Like when you smell skunk spray, I said that already. They just cribbed that wheel from Weenology. And then Kent says, Morten Munchow from Coffee Mind is one of my favorite people who works with coffee. It's a Danish company. Yeah, because I picked this up when I was judging the Danish roasting championship, like in 2017 or 2019, something like that. I was there. It was 2019. Had a great time. And the Coffee Mind guys, they had a whole bunch of them. So I grabbed maybe 6 of them, rolled them back up and took them home. Kept one for myself to frame for the shop. And then I gave them to the rest of the staff or guests who happened to be there at that moment. I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed going there. I don't quite get, I'm going to offend you right now, but I don't quite get the whole, I'm going to shove this sausage into a bun. Like, I know people love it. I know, and I don't really like to say this too often because I don't want to offend a whole nation of people that are already offended by the United States at the moment. Right? So I'll say no more. I do like the sandwiches that you have that have the like the shrimp piled up on high with the broth that's kind of like crusty and thick and like very like rye-ish. Gosh, I love that. Like I went to like all these restaurants to eat those, to try the different ones. Anyway, I went to Lou and they asked me to try a new perfume. Oh, nice. They were not nice, nice. And Kent says that his work exposes much of the bro science in coffee. I don't know what that means. Probably, I would probably be in favor of that kind of work, though. If I'm presuming that the bro science means a lot of like not real kind of stuff and just guys talking. Kent says, I don't eat meat, so I'm not a... Okay, very good. I don't want to offend your national sensibilities, you know. All right, excellent. So, but like I'm saying, so you can use flavor wheels like that, but really, we have those for people to check out and staff to check out, to try, and it's good to have something like these references so that it helps. Okay, so there's the first part of consumers or enthusiasts who are starting to explore this world of their palates, trying to figure out what they like. And really, it's all about what you like. Like I don't care what anybody else tells me, right? I'm interested. Like if I know another coffee professional in the world and they have an opinion on something and I think they are worthy of listening to, and I'll be honest with you, I'm very, very particular about who I think is worthy to listen to. There's a lot of like experts that I'm sure many of you who follow or have read and think, that guy's a righteous dude, and I think that guy's a clown. So, but there's that. So, and I'm sure there's people out there that probably look at me and think, who's that jerk off, right? So it's all right. It's all right. It's just kind of how it goes in the business. You just kind of gravitate towards some people and you steer away from others, and that's perfectly fine. But anyway, like I'm saying, so when we're working with people that are relatively new to tasting, I try to encourage all kinds of expression. Like, just express yourself, right? However it is. And that's why when people like Gary will say things like, you know, I don't have a very good palate. You do. Like, because especially, like, maybe if you're like 5 years old, you don't have a very good palate. Maybe if you're 7 years old, you don't have a very good palate. Okay, I'll concede that. But if you've reached adult age, you do have a very good palate. Like I said, the difference is that someone like myself has been thinking about what we're tasting, trying to figure out how to describe what we're tasting so that other people may be able to find that appealing. And that's really what it's about. All of this tasting stuff is really about commerce, right? We're all about commerce. I want you to buy coffee from me, and therefore I need to find a way to express this coffee in a way that seems palatable or exciting to you, so you're like, I will get off my couch and buy this coffee, right? That's what we want. That's what we want. That's what all of this tasting stuff is for, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what segment of the industry, of any of those industries that you happen to be in, it's all about the same thing. Everybody's just trying to seduce you to buy their coffee. I'm being seduced by producers and exporters to like, hey, buy our coffee. These are descriptions. This is the geisha. You're going to love it because it's very florally and tea. No, I don't love florally and tea, so please don't show me that. Oh, then you're going to love this blueberry. Okay, blueberry. Now we're talking, right? So it's always about that, right? So that's why we have these descriptions. And, you know, as you go about, and this is how and people ask, oh, how do you figure out how to do that? And I say, well, how I've been doing it is that as I live and as I experience life, I think about what I'm eating. How would I describe this? So if I'm at a restaurant and I'm having, I don't know, anything, anglais, right? Anglais with frites, right? How would I describe the flavor of this to somebody so that they can understand what I'm tasting? That's actually that's really the big challenge. Like, for example, think about just to yourself. How would you describe the flavor of orange to someone? Like, we all pretty much have tasted oranges. We all know what oranges taste like. There's a commonality between all of us that share what orange is. So if I said to you, oh, there's notes of orange. Ah, okay, cool. But if somebody said to you, well, what does an orange taste like? that's difficult, right? Because orange would be a descriptive, but now when you're trying to describe orange, how do you do it? Juicy, maybe bright and acidic at times. What else could you use as expressions of that flavor? And that's part of the thing. So how do you? So I will sit there and think about things like that because really I have nothing else better to do in life except sit around thinking about, well, I'm a fat guy trying to thinking about food. How do I describe the food so I can eat more? That's always it's a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle, right? Cuties with us. How's it going in Thailand? The taste smell you have is determined by your own experience with what you have within your. Absolutely. And that's why, like when we talk about, like it's more limited in your own world, but like since I've done judging around the world, it becomes a little bit more apparent because like if I work with a panel of judges from any particular country, they're going to have different background and flavor experiences, like Cutie is saying, based on their experience and their part of the world, right? Like, for example, if I say to an American judge, this coffee has characters of lychee, most American judges will not have any idea what that is. Or let's say graviola, which is soursop. Not too many are going to have experiences with that. If I say to American judges outside of the Mid-Atlantic region, this coffee has characteristics of pawpaw. Pawpaw is a fruit, very, very like regional, specific to like the Mid-Atlantic part of the United States, and maybe a little bit of the South. Outside of that, it's unheard of. And inside of this area, most people have never even had it because it's so difficult to find, and the time of harvest is so narrow that most people never had. Like it took me like decades before I even ever had my first one. Like I think the first time I really had pawpaw was like in 2005. So these are all things that are going to play when you're talking about your experiences. Charles with us. What's going on, Charles? How are you? Why rhymes with oranges? Oh, what rhymes with oranges? I know, that's good. And then PowerPoint says, coffee is also an acquired taste for everyone. Never met a little kid who loves coffee the first time they try it, unlike sugar. That's an interesting thing you mentioned, because I hated coffee. Like I hated coffee up until I got into the business. Hated it. With like not a passion, but I just like this disgusting. I need to ask one of my friends. One of my friends, Barry, who I've known, he's senior to me in the business. So when I first got in the business, he had been in for a while. We're somewhat similar in age. And when I was new to the business, he had just had his daughter, his first daughter. And I remember he had his infant daughter, and I mean babe in arms kind of infant. And he would feed his daughter espresso, like take a little, I don't know, like a pipette or something, or a little demi-tasse spoon, and just give her a little bit, just give a little bit. And I wonder, like, now that you mentioned that, I wonder, like, I'm going to have to reach out to him today and ask him, like, did his daughter grow up with a love for coffee? Because I agree with you. I think a lot of coffee, like when I was younger and my father was drinking it, he was drinking mostly Taster's Choice. It's god awful. It's god awful. It was god awful then. It's god awful now. Like, I mean, if you love it, I'm not poo-pooing on your taste, but man, I was just never enamored by it, right? But like I'm saying, so I think that everybody has the ability and has a great palate, because what is a palate really supposed to do? The palate is really about trying to preserve our life for as long as possible, right? We taste things because we want to live and prosper, meaning that if we taste poisons, most poisons, our tastes are geared so that most poisons, unless you're talking about antifreeze, do not taste very nice. So you kind of want to spit it out because it could be toxic to you. And toxic foods tend to kill you. So if you spit them out and don't eat them, we tend to live longer. So that's why we have these taste buds. But like I said, I encourage people to think about what you're tasting, how to describe it, and then that just builds. The more you think about it, the more it builds. So like you get to a point eventually where you're just kind of like, well, this coffee tastes like kumquats with you know, honey, but the honey is also not clove honey, but it's that kind of honey if the bees are feeding on walnut flowers. It's got that tinge of bitterness. Who knows? Something like that. If the more breadth that you can give into your tasting and your thinking about tasting, the more you can, embellish your coffee. And then you can go out around and like you wield it like a sword and intimidate other coffee people wherever you go. Be like, yeah, it tastes like that honey from that's pollinated by walnut trees. Can't you taste that? Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, of course. Things like that. That's really what we're all about. That's really what it's all about here. Power Plant says, poison like tobacco and alcohol, delicious poison. It is delicious poison. But, I even like with the tobacco, like, for example, with cigars for me, like 20 years ago, it must have been like almost 20 years, 15 years ago at least, I started to have this reaction. And people always ask me, are you chewing? Because you know how people that chew tobacco, they spit, it generates my salivary glands when I smoke a cigar. So I always have a need to spit. There's very few people, there's a small subset of cigar smokers that are like this. I happen to be one of them. It's a little bit frustrating at times, but what can you do? All right, so that's generally what I'm thinking, right? And it's really about taking the time to think about your palate and think about what you're tasting. But if you want to, understand a little bit more about, where's my cursor, about the tasting, there's a whole world of beyond just this. It's also a good way to think about how the coffee arrives on your palate. Remember yesterday we talked about like Riedel and the glassware and then the coffee serviceware that we're using. I'm thinking about the shape of the cup and how it delivers the coffee to your palate, or maybe even the wine to your palate, right? And the way that Riedel designs their wine glasses is that they look at the regions and think about the flavors common for that region of the world, and then they try to craft a glass that will help highlight that, and by the way that it delivers to the palate. And here is a little chart. This is something that we always talk about in the tasting world, and this is something that we talk about tasting world across different industries. And these are the taste buds. There's 5 sensories, right? Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and recently this umami kind of thing, which honestly, people talk about umami. I don't really understand it, right? I grew up eating soy sauce. It's good. What is umami? I don't know. I don't understand it, right? It's good. It's unctuous. It's an unctuous kind of character, but I don't feel that it's as identifiable as, like, say, sweet, salty, bitter, things like that. So, but it is now recognized as part of it. And you can see here on this little illustration of our tongue is that the bitters are in the back, the sours are here. Like, it's more, if you think about when you get the sour feelings, right? You get the sour feelings, there's a puckering on your cheeks here. I guess it's triggered by the sides of your tongue, right? That's why it's kind of apparent to the cheeks. And then the sweet, salty, and umami comes at the very tip. That's really where it's coming at the very tip. And maybe that's why certain things taste salty when you're licking them. Anyway, so this is a great way to think about it, as far as, like, how do foods and drinks affect the way you taste. Like, if you took a coffee, you tried to, like, position it arriving onto your tongue in a certain position, it may impact your experience of that coffee differently each time, right? So that's something to explore as well. Marcus with us. What's going on, man? How are you doing? Cuny says, I think taste buds change as you grow up, both physically and through experience. I know some people that couldn't stand cantaloupe when they were younger that really enjoy it. I agree. Like, for example, For me, when I was young, tomatoes, I hated tomatoes. God, it was disgusting. Like, put them in burgers, that's gross. Get that out of there. Eat them raw, get out of here. Put them in a salad. Oh, now I tear up tomatoes. Tear them up. Tear them up. Like, people always tell me that, oh, bitter melon, you're going to like bitter melon as you get older. And I'm like, I'm older now. I don't like bitter melon. So maybe some things don't change. But certainly, I agree. I agree. So you definitely learn more. And I think that the more you taste, the more I think you become adaptable to other flavors. And I tend to be fairly adventurous. Like, I'll pretty much try anything. Like, okay, let's try it. That, which is sometimes well, when we were younger, when we were all younger, it was a bit of source of frustration. Like with my niece, for a while, she was very much like, she only had a very narrow range of food she wanted to eat. Children, they just want to eat whatever. And I was like, you eat sushi, but you don't want to eat this. What's wrong with you, right? But what can you do? What can you do? That's just how it is. Malcolm's with us. What's going on, man? How are you doing? Powerplant says taste is also very dependent on having good olfactory sense. I agree with Q&A that taste can change over time and also culture. You definitely, I would say, your ability to smell is a great factor in either expanding or inhibiting your ability to taste. Like, right? Like, I've always occluded. So there's always a chance that I'm not tasting as much as I possibly could have because of that, right? So the nice thing is, if you're trying to do a critical kind of tasting thing, you want to try to be as you can in order to be just to have all of your senses working at the same time. Powerplant says, personally, I detest floral flavors, except for jasmine, but many cultures love them. The easiest way to get to feeling for umami is to eat a MSG and feels what happens in your mouth. Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. Maku says, apparently the division of the taste bud regions has been debunked. Meaning that we can taste all kinds of sensations all across our tongues. I think I remember hearing about that. And to me, that does make sense. Like, why would our bodies have come to the point where the senses would be limited to regions of the tongue? Like, for example, like, we have great ability to sense with our fingertips, right? Our ability, I think I read somewhere that it can be, we can sense down to 5,000ths of an inch with our fingertips, right? But it's not like we only have the sense of touch. Here, we have sense of touch pretty much everywhere, right? So it does make sense to me but I think that a lot of this develops, because you're trying to figure out how do you explain this kind of like idea. So I think it started with limited understanding of it and then trying to explain it, trying to figure it out, and then slowly everything changes. Like, it's interesting. Like, I think about when I was younger, right? Like in the 80s, I came of age in the 80s. Like, I graduated high school in 1987. Wonderful time. And I always think about, like, man, we had so much advancement, so much technology, so much like knowledge. And then as we kept going, and I was like, look back, I was like, wow, they changed that. They changed that. They changed that. Like, I thought we knew so much back then. We didn't know much at all. Like, we didn't know much at all, right? So definitely, I would agree with you. I would definitely agree with you on that. Powerplant says, and psychosomatic effects are definitely in play for many people. Absolutely. Keone says, to be honest, I would eat anything that others would eat, including insects, bat, rat. I figure if others eat it, they're best. I would agree. That's why I agree with that. I think that there's a lot to explore. And, I would rather know that I don't like something than just to be thinking, oh, that's disgusting. Like, I want to know it's disgusting. Like, I want to know from firsthand experience, like, that's disgusting. Right? Like, antifreeze does taste sweet. And it's disgusting, right? You want to know that for sure. I don't recommend it, but sometimes. Keone says, the tip of your nose is one of the most sensitive places when, oh, really? Is that why the old Hawaiians would, is that right? if I'm, and this is beyond my true understanding, but from my, what I'm referencing here is that what little I know is that, or have learned or have been taught is that in the old days of the Hawaiian people, they would come together, I believe touch noses, right? And then breathe in. I have a conceptual understanding of why. I am reluctant to explain it because I could be completely wrong, but like the ha, which I think is the breath, right? The ha is the breath, and you exchange that in love. I don't know. Maybe Keone can explain. I'm certainly not one to speak with any level of authority on that kind of thing. But that's kind of the idea. So let's make some coffee and taste to see what it's like to taste coffee and think about tasting. And we're just going to do espresso again because you know what? I'm kind of in the mood for espresso, and I don't feel like hand grinding because I have not fixed the ode that broke yesterday. That ode, I tell you what, it's quite a, oh, wrong switch. I have to turn the camera on. Would be helpful. There we go. Okay, now here we are, our espresso machine. Let us make some espresso. Okay, so we're starting off again with our basket. We want to make sure it's clean, so we got to clean it out. Actually, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse it out a little bit, flush the group head, and we're going to let the hot water flow through to make sure that it's nice and even in temperature. We're not getting any sputtering, so that's a good thing. Okay. Now with the dripped out, right? Let's put some of our taste buds to the test. Oops. Plug that in. Okay, so now we've got it fell down. There's a little, so it's a little bit lower in the front this time. That's where the low spot is, but it's higher here and lower here. So I'm actually going to come around this way to sweep it around and distribute the coffee, then come back. Okay, now this is where I would think like, there's just a little bit of coffee here. Should I work that in or should I get rid of it? Like, the lazy part of me would work it in, and then I would end up with too much coffee and we might get a slowdown or a clogging issue. So I'm going to swipe away a bit of it back to here. Maybe just tidy it up so we can center the little bit of excess. Now come back, drop our tamper on. Again, make sure that it's level all the way around. Come back and give a nice tamp with a twist. And there it is, nice and clean, nice and flat. Flush one more time because I just like to flush like that. Lock it in and then brew right away. I'm a big believer in brewing right away. Like the moment you lock in your portafilter, it should be brewing. And look at that. That shot looks really nice. In my opinion, this is ideal. Oh, there it is. A little bit of flutter. I'm liking this. This is like the sweet spot at the moment, right? These last few days that we've been making espresso, we've reached this very sweet spot of espresso making, meaning that everything is kind of equilibrium, right? Like we've got the grind set pretty well. We've got everything just tuned in nicely. So we're kind of riding this wave. It's kind of like you've been paddling out there, trying to catch the wave, and you get on the wave, and now we're riding it. We're going to try to ride it for as long as possible without making adjustments. We don't want to muck it up, right? We don't muck it up because you start making adjustments, like I could make it better, and then you make it worse, and then you're chasing it, and then it's just a vicious circle. So right now is the kind of like time when I'm like, oh, I just want to enjoy it. I just want to enjoy it like that. That's very nice. That is nice. That's nice. We don't get the dark flecking anymore, but All right, so what's happening with the taste, right? The onset, there's a little bit of, there's an onset, like the forward thing that comes is a bit of bitterness, a bit of saltiness. Now, this is, like I said, this is not a very bright kind of coffee, so the brightness is downplayed, right? There's not very much brightness. It's just a lot of body, a lot of dark chocolate, or more like dark cacao, like almost like with just a little hint of cacao powder. Oh, the cacao powder is definitely getting more apparent. Definitely a powdery, kind of dry-ish kind of character on the palate overall. Yeah, that's what I'm liking. I'm liking this quite a lot. Keone says Filipinos in our culture also do you that. Oh, really? You know what? That is kind of true. I never even thought about that. About Filipinos, touching nose with baby. I kind of do that without without ever have thought about that. Wow. Okay, that's good. Power Plant says babies have amazing healing abilities. Oh my. And Malcolm says to prove it. I don't know. I don't know what you want us to prove. Touching noses or cutting babies and watching them heal. Yeah, that's nice. Now here's the thing. So let's say you want to become a taster, right? You're one of those people that thinks, I watch all these people on YouTube, or I see my coffee professionals at my local coffee shop, and the way they talk, they wax so poetic about coffee. I can't do that. Absolutely, you can. You totally can. And like I said, the difference is that they just take the time to think about it, right? If you just take the time to think about what you're tasting, like most of the time, I think we taste coffee, or we enjoy coffee. But before I say that, one thing I want you to consider is that all of this fruity frou-frou talk about coffee, beautiful descriptives and all that is not important to your enjoyment of it. It means absolutely nothing to your enjoyment of it. Remember what I said about why do we have these descriptives? Because we want to sell you something, right? Me as a coffee roaster and a coffee shop operator, I want you to buy coffee from us. I want you to come in, buy coffee, and enjoy. Now, of course, for me as a coffee craft person, I want you to have a greater enjoyment and understanding of it. And but really at the bottom line, we're just trying to sell you something. We just want you to buy and enjoy it, and buy it and think that it's so much better than all those other like lesser coffee people out there, right? Those other coffee shops, they suck. They do. They really do. Right? But what's important is that you enjoy your coffee experience, right? And however that happens, if you could sit there for the rest of your life, never even thinking about, oh, this is cocoa powder, and it's got like some bitterness on the front end. It's got a nice nutty finish that's very, very clean. You may never have that thought, but I bet you could enjoy your coffee tremendously until the day you die without ever thinking about any of that stuff. So enjoyment of coffee is not predicated by your ability to describe to an nth degree what you're tasting. All you have to do, all I think that's important is that you sit there and you're like, gosh, I really like that. I love it. Why do you love it? I don't know, but it's awesome. Well, tell me. Well, why should I tell? What do I need to tell you? I like it. You'll never get to try it because it's all gone now. So go make your own coffee and just stay over there. That's what I think. That's what I think. Yeah, like look at the way that it's finishing here, right? Look at that. It's all like thick. There's still some crema there. Like this here, like when I think about espresso and what I like in an espresso, this is when, at the very end of it all, when we're done and I put it down and I look at it as someone that's drinking it, this is what I want to see. As a barista, this is what I want to see when I look at a cup that a customer has come in and finished. This is the residue, right? It's nice and thick, and there's still thickness to it. Look at that. There's still, that's visually speaking. This is what this helps to inform me whether or not we're able to deliver an espresso that is what we hope it to be. And that's the truth. When we're making drinks for other people, we can only hope that it's going to be what we would like it to be. We'll never get to know that. We'll never get to taste it. We can ask our guests and be like, well, how was it? And they're like, oh, it's great. Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I hope you have a wonderful time. And that's nice feedback. But when you tell me it's great, it honestly doesn't tell me. It tells me nothing, right? It feeds my ego maybe, right? I'm like, oh, okay, good. You love it. Okay, come back more and buy more. That's all we want, right? But it doesn't tell me that much. Like I was in a conversation in another forum today with some coffee business owners, and she was complaining, or he was, who knows, they want to post as anonymous. They're complaining that they're losing a lot of staff that would come in and give their 2 weeks, and then they would be lackadaisical the last 2 weeks of their employment. And it was very frustrating. And then they would complain about staff and complain about management and complain. And, I kind of, all the other people that are owners in the forum, they're like, well, yeah, they're all like that. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. That whole and I said to her, I said, well, you said this happens all the time now. There's a pattern. The issue is you as the operator, not the issue. The issue is not with your staff. The issue is not with anything else. The issue is with you. That person kind of got mad. Like they were like, well, did you read what everybody else wrote? Like, I don't care what everybody else wrote. They probably operate crappy coffee shops too, right? So if you want, I think that to me, it's always about how staff reacts depends highly upon you who's running it, right? That's how I look at it, right? I can't say that I've been the best boss. I can't say that I have not been a complete raging a-hole at times. Like if you're the owner, you gotta be that at some times. There's just times when there's just no way to avoid. You can never be perfectly nice, right? But I do believe that if you want to have consistency, if you want to have quality, you have to be very dogged in your pursuit about that. You have to have standards. You have to enforce those standards. Like I see people that are like, well, my staff, how do they get them to follow the recipes? You've got to be on them. You got to train them very hard and very strictly. You also have to be on top of them, and not necessarily on top of people like, hey, what are you doing? But let's say I observe, with my staff, I would observe, and if they did things that were outside of our spectrum, I would go to them later and be like, hey, when you're doing this, let's do it this way. Try it this way. Keep it this way. Keep it this way. And it's always about slight course corrections, right? Just to remind everybody that we're trying to stay on path. Because the less you do that, the more the deviation becomes. And then the course correction becomes very hard. And I've made that mistake. I remember quite a few years ago, I wasn't holding onto the reins very much, right? And we had what I felt was a very strong course deviation. And in order for me to to correct that, it took very dramatic changes, right? I brought in a completely new set of staff. And honestly, it ended up being kind of difficult because, well, not difficult, but it ended up being a lot more harsher because I ended up sequestering them. I kept them apart from the rest of our staff because I was like, okay, I don't want them to work with this group because I have deviated. I have allowed that deviation to go too far here. That's become entrenched. So let me bring these people on and train them just with me. No more training with everybody else, just with me, because I want them to have the path that I want us to be on. And then after they were set, then I brought our staff together, and that's when I still let them work together. But that's when I brought everyone together and was like, this is where we're going. This is what we need to do. And I was like, let's work together and see and make these corrections. Unfortunately, the reality would end up being that those that had been on the deviation were unable to return to our path. So eventually they left through attrition. But, I didn't want to lose them. I tried to keep them with us. but sometimes it just doesn't work out, So there's always times when you're going to have issues, and staff will always leave, and some staff will leave and they'll think, that guy was a raging, and there's always going to be that. But when somebody says to me, hey, this is happening all the time, if it happens all the time, then there's got to be some reason for that. It's not just like it's not just simply a generational thing, right? At least that's what I think about it. That's what I think about it. But like going back to what we're saying here, so you sit there, if you want to sit there and like think about like you can download off the internet. I don't know if you can download this particular one, but there's other examples of flavor wheels out there that you could just put on your computer in a PDF or whatever, and just refer to that. You can sit there and you can think like, okay, let's see, we had our. That's about to come out of the track. All right, let's say. Hang on. So let's say we're tasting our coffee, right? So we've got, and one thing also to bear in mind, whether you're using this one or the SCA or any of the different companies that have released flavor wheels, this is not sacrosanct. You're not limited to this. These are just meant as a guideline to help frame your mind. So for example, here in the chocolate section, we have pure cocoa, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, right? What I'm tasting here is like a cocoa powder. There's no cocoa powder category. Does that mean that I'm wrong? No. Does that mean that you'd be wrong? No. This is what you taste. This is how you identify it. This just is a guideline. Like it fits somewhere in the chocolate, but just because there's no cocoa powder doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that this is incomplete, right? So, like here's something that many years ago when I was involved in syrup manufacturing, we were trying to develop a strawberry syrup. And I went to a company called Virginia Dare. Virginia Dare is a flavor manufacturer. So I worked with like Virginia Dare and IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances, for different things. And I remember going to Virginia Dare and talking to our guy there, our food chemist there. And I was like, what about strawberries? Like, well, we can send you some samples. Okay. I was like, well, what do you have? He's like, we have 225 strawberries. What? 225 strawberries? Yeah, 225 strawberries. But if you don't find what you like, we can create one to meet your specifications. I was like, strawberry, right? And it's like, no, strawberry's not strawberry. I was like, oh. And, this is like 25 years ago. But I learned then that it was like, okay, so let's say let's say strawberry. And I had a very particular, in my mind, the strawberry that I wanted. We eventually got to it. It took us like 2 years of like development to get to the strawberry that I wanted. But if you think about it, we think about the things like in a very monolithic strawberry, oranges. But if you really think about it, let's say strawberry, right? Think about all the times you've had strawberry. Oh, no. First of all, think about the perfect strawberry that you've had. Like, when it's like perfectly sweet and unctuous, you're just like, this is the glory of strawberry, right? And this is true for any fruit. But you think about that, like, this is my ideal. This is beautiful. Then think about all the other times you've had strawberry when it wasn't that. Maybe there were different points of the harvest. Maybe they were different varietals. Maybe they were different amounts of sunlight or whatever. Each of those times that you've had it that you were not like, this is amazing, is still strawberry and is an expression, a legitimate expression of strawberry. So imagine these 225 samples of strawberry. It's the spectrum of all those flavors and all those experiences. And you got to find the one that matches to what you like or what you think is absolute strawberry. That's the same way with all of this, right? These can only be just a rough idea of anything. So when you go to places, you see these charts, don't think these are sacrosanct. Don't think these are the ultimate authority. These are just guidelines for you to follow. And yeah, so that's kind of it, right? I think that's, use the chart if you want to. The charts do help. Like you can sit there and be tasting something and thinking, what does that taste like? I can't describe it. I don't know what it tastes like. And that still happens to me many times, right? Like sometimes you forget, sometimes you just don't have the right way to describe it. Sometimes you just don't connect it. So you may have a flavor and you're like, it's kind of bright. It's kind of astringent. It's kind of sharp. What does it taste like? And you think but it's kind of florally, right? So you think floral. And then elderflower, I don't know what that is. So if you don't know what that is, forget it. Chamomile, no, it's not chamomile. Coffee blossom, who knows what coffee blossom tastes like? How does a guy in the Netherlands or Norway or in Scandinavia know what coffee blossom smells or tastes like? I don't know. Kent, you tell us how jasmine, and then rose, lavender, and then here it is, hibiscus. Oh yeah, I was thinking of hibiscus, jamaica in other languages, right? So you can use this to help guide you and find your way to a description, but don't feel that something like this is going to be the limits of your expression of coffee. And like I said, when I work with a lot of like consumers, I always encourage the consumer, or anyone really, to express their appreciation or to express their interpretation of the coffee in any way that it comes to them. Like, really what I want that person to come in and feel it on a soulful level, on a guttural level. So however they do it, like I said, one person came in and said, it tastes like Def Leppard. I was like, Def Leppard? Oh, that's awesome. Like, if you feel that, man, that's it. That's all you need. That's all you need. Power Plan says, look at the chart, learn the chart. See, I don't even think you need to learn the chart. I just think it's a nice thing to have in a tasting room, a tasting session that you can reference if you need to. But do you need to learn it? No. I think that, to me personally, I think that it's important that you just go out and taste everything that you can in the world. And if you have the time and the mental capacity at that moment, think about what you're tasting. How would I describe this? Like you're eating a meal. How do I describe it? You're eating a banana. How would I describe that? Right? I'm eating like white chocolate. How would I describe that? I'm eating sushi. How would I describe this? Right? And maybe and here's something. Don't get frustrated. Like, let's say you're eating this this omelet nigiri sushi, right? You're eating it, and you're like, how would I describe it? And you can't. Maybe you don't really. You're not able to for whatever reason or anything you're trying. Don't get discouraged. Who cares? You can't taste it. Do you like it still? Okay, I like it. Good. Let's move on. Next time, try it again. Then you'll find over time it builds. As with any kind of skill, it takes time to build it. You just take little baby steps, step forward. Eventually, your friends will be amazed, and you'll be like, "Yeah, well, you can't taste that walnut flour in the honey." Right? That can be you. Or you can be you now. All you got to do is fake it till you make it, right? Just be like, I taste this, I taste this. Sometimes I wonder when I'm tasting coffee with people, or especially in the wine world, you taste wine, people like, come on now, Governor, do you really taste that? So you never know. Ah, there we go, tamago yaki. There we go. Thank you. All right, I guess that's it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be babbling on about the same thing over and over again. Think about your tasting. Don't be afraid to express yourself in whatever method or feeling comes to you. And remember also that this coffee experience, while we enjoy it as a community together, it's still a very individual experience. It's still in many respects, it's still a very private experience. Right? Like we could all get in this. We can all go to the same shop and sit down and be like, hey, can we all get an espresso? And even if they're all as good as the other, the experience is still a private, personal experience. So don't be shy to enjoy it for yourself. Power Plant says, you can always ask us questions. I know, but I know you're going to, I know it's kind of like my low key way of doing, because I know that you guys know this and you're going to tell me what it is. Like, this is it, right? See? This is how we work. We all work together. All right. So hope that helps. And I have started, and I don't know, hopefully this will continue, but after yesterday's live stream, I decided to write an entry into the Substack. I have a Substack that has been dormant for the last 3 years. And this is one of those moments where you see all these, like, bloggers or whatever you call them that are like, I know I've been away for the last whatever, I'm going to come back and do it and like make an announcement about it. And then they never do anything, right? So this is my announcement to say that, hey, I might start to do more in Substack. So if you're interested, you can click on the link down below in the description, subscribe to the Substack. It's a little bit of a different take on yesterday's topic. So I think I'm going to try to write about the topics that we cover. Maybe. Or not. But I did enjoy the writing part of it yesterday. So that was a nice thing. Oh, questions? Well, you can always tell me. I mean, if you have questions, I'm always interested. You don't have to wait for me to ask you for them. I'm really here, let me tell you mostly about what I'm doing half the time. Okay, half the time when we're talking on here, I am thinking about what else can we talk about? Because I look to the comments, because I'm expecting that if you have questions, you will feel comfortable. You should feel comfortable putting them in the comments at any moment in time. Because you know but especially for those of you who watch the show quite often, you already know how much I enjoy going off on tangents and how easily I can jump on a tangent for 20 minutes. So feel free to put questions at the moment that you feel them in the comments, and that will help. That actually helps, right? Like different streams that I've done. It's like you sit around, you're like talking, and I'm always thinking, like, no matter how comfortable I might look in any moment of time during the stream, there's always a part of me that's like, what are we going to try to talk about next? Because I'm about to run out of discussion. Like, for example, before I picked up this chart the last time, just recently, like, I was already running out of things to say. I'm like, okay, we need to continue for just a few more minutes. So if you have questions, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Hoon, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. No, you ask, but I don't know what to ask you is the problem, right? Sometimes you go hard in the paint, run out of steam, and then end the show. Well, yeah, sometimes there's just nothing left. It's like, okay, we're done. Like right now, okay, we're done. But it's also like I do try to keep it to an hour. Like, and I see that we're now running into that hour. So I mean, but if you have a question, if you have things that you'd like me to get into, I certainly can continue. But I try to also, I know that some of you are in different parts of the world, and it's getting late, right? Like one of my friends, she'll call me from Manila at like 1 a.m, and I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna be up till 4 o'clock again. So, all right, that's gonna be it. Hope you have a wonderful day out there. Back again tomorrow with more of the Coffee Q&A. So, see you next time.